So welcome to PartnerUp, Partnerships Podcast. All right, we're live.
I'm excited to jump in. Get to work.
The thing that matters in a partnership is the trust and sacrifice.
Proposing, building software that works for you.
And actually, what's funny, I'm actually going to call an audible right here because I didn't tell either of you about this. But there's this big story that just broke just now. Alex, I don't know if you have any insight into this, or Justin, if you have any hot takes. But have you heard, either of you heard about the story? Because this is very like ecosystem related, of Fortnite and Apple. Are either of you familiar with this?
I've heard of rumblings of them potentially not being happy with each other. Is that what's going on?
Well, okay. So have you ever downloaded an app on your phone?
Yeah.
And you go to sign up, and then it's like, log in. But you're like, wait a second, log in. Why can't I create an account? It's because it's a paid service, right? And if e-commerce is enabled on the App Store, then Apple takes 30% of the cut, right? So any transactions, I actually just went through this with ExpressVPN, as a matter of fact. So I went through this with ExpressVPN, had a very seamless process where they basically direct me to the website, created the account, pay, and all of that, and then go back and get the app. Because if you do e-commerce in the app, Apple takes 30%. Well, Fortnite went around this and allowed it somehow, through some, I don't know the particulars, allowed basically upgrades that might have been tied to their account to happen in the app. So Apple's like, give us all your money, this, that, or the other. Well, Microsoft basically skirted the app store in a very similar way. So you have a very interesting clash of two of the most interesting or large kind of ecosystems, if you will, coming to a head of, Apple and Microsoft. I'm curious, who do you think is going to get the upper hand on this one? You have like the leader in consumer delight, and then the juggernaut of enterprise kind of, incumbency, so to speak. Who's going to win, Justin?
I definitely see more Apple infiltration than I see Microsoft infiltration these days.
Yeah, but you're the same person that would say that Slack is kicking Microsoft Teams' butt. But
yeah, that's because
Microsoft Teams has 10 times more users.
I'm working at startups, is why. I'm not working for an Adobe like Alex here. But I'm a little far from that, Alex.
I mean, Microsoft's a huge partner of Adobe, right? We love that relationship, but Apple plays a bit in that space really well and really largely. So I don't know how Apple gets beat here, but
yeah, I feel like because it's on the consumer forefront and not the enterprise forefront, that the consumer experience Apple's going to win out on. And anyways, we're just like hopping in, going straight into stuff. Alex Wright, everybody, welcome to PartnerUp. Justin, how'd you get connected to Alex here? Because I think we were looking to bring back some partner marketing, because that's just always an amazing topic of everyone thinking like, hey, here's how we market with partners. We wanted to see who was the best, maybe, and you got some leads or something?
Yeah, I prayed to the LinkedIn community. I reached out to my network. I said, hey, who's the best partner marketer you should know? And probably a little biased, because probably 40% of my connections are Adobe employees, given my line of work. But time and time again, there was several recommendations for Alex Wright from his peers, which says a lot, right? That they would go out of their way to make that recommendation, both DMing me, sending me an email, as well as replying right to the post. So
we know exactly who to blame.
Yeah. Yeah.
We know. We'll put that in the show notes. Everyone that commented, Alex. No, I'm kidding. Alex, welcome to PartnerUp, man. Happy to have you.
Excited to be here.
Definitely. So we're going to talk about all things partner marketing and kind of phrasing it. We were kind of talking prior to, market to, market with, market through, and how you've kind of learned some of these pivotal lessons, kind of in your tenure at Adobe, and thinking about this as, kind of a leader in, marketing in the space. Adobe might be the second largest software company in the world, but is absolutely the number one as it relates to marketing. So there might be some tips and tricks that you could share that all of us in startup land or those of us on the other side of the table might be able to apply. Thinking one thing that is very interesting to me is how you start to position yourself inside of an organization like Adobe, because partner marketing can mean a lot of different things. There's technology, there is obviously agency, solutions partners, and in the context of your function today, your primary focus has been on the solution side, the kind of agency and the broad base of partnerships that span across multiple products. Is that correct?
Yep, that's correct.
So like the DX side of the business, or is it, should I say CJM? Is it DX, or CJM?
Yeah, it's DX. Yeah.
Okay, so you got juggernauts like AEM, right? So that's
Yeah,
kind of like the largest DXP to Marketo to Magento, all of that.
Correct. Yeah, and as well as Target Analytics. So yeah, the whole stack.
So maybe that's the first question that I would love to think through. You have this portfolio of products that you represent, and those portfolio of products map to use cases, but potentially also verticals. And then you have this partner ecosystem. Where do you start partner marketing initiatives? Do you look at it through the lens of product? Do you look at it through the lens of vertical? Do you look at it through the lens of, let's say partner type? Because there's a lot. And if you go to service everyone the same way, I'm assuming not going to really work.
Yeah, I mean, I think you look at it a couple of different ways. One, I think you do have to look at partners that work with those solutions and have deployments against those solutions. You wouldn't use partner X that can't work with Marketo opportunities. But at the same time, I think we also look to partners that have vertical expertise, right? We were talking about this before we started. There are partners that work in certain spaces from an industry perspective that makes the most sense. They have those relationships, they have those deployments. And it's super important, right? That when we develop a strategy, a go-to-market strategy with the partner, that we make sure that we're confident in what these partners are able to do. They have the story in the background. So when we go into a conversation with a potential opportunity, they can share the success of like, hey, we know where you've been and we can get you where you want to go. And here's a great example of a peer of yours that was in a similar situation. So I think a lot of times we have to look at kind of a couple different areas, right? You got to understand the deployment of that product. You have to understand a deployment against a certain industry, right? When you look at whether it's healthcare or FSI are great examples where there's a lot of legality behind that. And there have to be partners that understand that accessibility and so forth. And so that's how we build that kind of strategy. And we were kind of talking about this at the beginning, right? Which was around that go-to-market strategy, right? And it's not just, hey, partner marketing comes in and we just start doing events or we start doing this or that. We work through this kind of motion of enablement, right? And working with partners to understand, hey, where you best fit within the business. And that includes solutions and then, verticals and industries. And then we look at those deployments. Like, where are you in the market, right? And then we talk about creating those use cases and stories. And then we develop that marketing plan that's going to help us go and create new business for both the partner and Adobe.
So let's talk about this in the context maybe of since it's such a broad topic. Let's put the lens of maybe the partner life cycle in front of us, right? And you're going to have different phases of maturity. So let's take a new partner to the ecosystem. They've made some commitment to to Adobe. So they've said, hey, we want to specialize in something. Are they coming and saying they're going to specialize in a product, or it's more the brand? How are they self-selecting in or being prospected into the ecosystem? Is it around a product specialty? Is it around vertical, some combination?
Yeah, I mean, I would think it's probably closer to that product side to start. I mean, just my perception of it, because there has to be some type of Adobe solution that they're supporting. As far as like a new partner coming in, I mean, we have this from time to time where we have a partner come up and say, hey, we want to do marketing with you. And then I say, well, let's have a conversation with you, our partner manager and myself, and understand like where we sit, right? And in a lot of times when they're newer partners, we quickly learn that, hey, there's a couple of steps ahead before marketing comes into the picture, and that's around enablement. Well, we're a new Adobe partner. Great. Well, let's work around the enablement piece to make sure that your team is up to speed on the Adobe stack. And then let's use Marketo as an example, that we understand how to sell Marketo and how to deploy against Marketo before we go into a marketing motion. And so I think those very quickly become the conversations that we have with the partner and the partner manager, and just the partner team in general, to say, hey, there are a couple of steps ahead of marketing before we can create a go-to-market strategy from a marketing perspective.
So I think you just gave away a bunch of answers to the tests, and you might not have realized it. Here's what I mean by that. I feel like a lot of organizations, agencies are a tough business. You're trading time for money. At the end of the day, it's time for money. Alex, you monetize intellectual property, you monetize technology, right? In the form of intellectual property. They monetize intellectual property in the form of services, right? So there's always some like, hey, help us. What you just said was there's going to be some steps before we're doing proper kind of like co-marketing, might be the way that you'd phrase it.
Right.
But what are those steps that you would skip? It would be the success stories, right? Like the demonstrated competency in some specialization around a product or solution.
Right.
I think the partners that we've done some great stuff with here at Drift, like we'll probably have him on, so I'll shout him out. Matt from ROI DNA, he's going to be featured on the Drift blog, I think next month. So doing some great stuff with him, but it's demonstrated his competency. Him and his team has gone out there and just figured it out. And we didn't have all the answers to the test. How do you think about communicating that so you don't have to take as many of those calls? Like it's almost about marketing the marketing program, like setting the stage and the context, because I feel like being in this world, I waste a lot of cycles on managing mismanaged expectations of partners that think, okay, I'm going to come in, you're going to teach me how to service, sell, support your product, and you're going to make me famous. Like that, whenever Justin and I were first talking when he was at Proficient, that is exactly what he was like saying to me the entire time. He was like, Jared, you need to teach me everything. You need to build this practice inside of our company, and you need to drive us a ton of business.
Jared wasn't talking to power at that point in time. That was his problem.
But so I think this is something, what you just demonstrated was like, why is that common? Like you'd think after all of the cycles of agencies working with different technology companies, that the people that figure it out go, we need to place our bets, right? So we can't partner with every technology company. We want to partner with a handful of select. And we need to go build this specialty or this competency and go win and show something. And then I can come to Alex and say, you'd be silly to not put this in front of your customers.
Right.
Why haven't partner marketers, and everyone else, it's like, we're always having those conversations on like, here's some steps before we can do co-marketing. I'd love to hear if you think there's, something we haven't maybe thought of, or something that you've witnessed where it's like, hey, whenever you approach it this way, partners tend to come a little bit more prepped.
Yeah. Look, I think any person who works on the alliances side and is trying to build a new relationship, they're scrappy, right? And they're trying to figure out every which way to get in the market. How do we work with Adobe specifically for us? And so you can't actually fault them that saying, hey, how do we create marketing activity together? Right? Because that's what they're being tasked to do, right? And so you can't even blame them to come to us and doing that. I do think that in what I've seen a lot less, and this really the conversations have been far and few between as of recently, is we are in lockstep with the partner managers, right? To say, hey, here are your group of partners. Are there newer ones or ones that are building new practices? For example, they've been a Marketo shop for a long time, and now they're dipping their toes into AEM. Right. Well, we're not going to go develop a demand gen program around AEM until we feel confident that the deployments are there. But they've got to get their feet wet some way. Right. So you can't really blame them for coming to us going like, hey, let's create demand gen activity. And we're happy and we're excited to hear that. But I will say that it is really being in lockstep with our partner managers to say, hey, like, are we here yet? No, well, no, we're not. Okay, well, then let's table this meeting for a few months. And I've had this conversation as of recently because we have some amazing partner managers that come forth ahead of time and say, hey, I got this partner who wants to do this. And we have a conversation with them ahead of time. And I say, I think we need to wait a couple months until the deployments are there. But also, I actually like being brought in the conversation because sometimes that market to aspect where we need to be marketing to the partner around, hey, your company is investing further in Adobe. And so I want to be able to be there for you and remind you around like your company's investing in this, whether you either understand it or are good with it or whatever it is. We want to share with you those details. We want to give you product information and whatever it takes to enable your team to be able to, for us, sell Adobe, right? And so that market to piece is as important.
Yeah, and I think it's also important. One thing I've found that works well is saying, all right, say we drive a bunch of leads, and now they're in discussions about maybe new Adobe technology in which place that partner is going to implement that technology. Like, do you feel comfortable doing that? Like, do you think that's going to go well, and you're going to create a case study that you can then go and use to gain more customers, or do you feel like you don't quite have the chops yet to get that first win on a net new deal? Because if it goes sideways, that's not going to be great. Like, it's going to put us back for months. Mm-hmm. We're better off treating this much kind of like developing a new product, which is really what it is from a service perspective. You're developing a new product, and typically companies don't start by marketing their product first and then selling it and then building it per se. Maybe some do, but usually it's all right, let's do an early access program or like a pilot with some of our existing customers to get their feedback, to work out the kinks, build the stories so that we can then take it to market with that story, put some marketing resources behind it, sell it, with our partners, etc. So I think it's helpful to kind of walk them through of like, all right, so we drove a bunch of leads, then what happens? Is that going to go well for both of us? Is that going to make you really successful in our ecosystem and vice versa? Or is it going to go sideways somewhere?
Yeah. And I also think what's really important that we have the buy-in from leadership, both, I sit in marketing, I don't sit on the partner side, even on partner marketing, but to have that buy-in from both our partner marketing leaders as well as our partner leaders to set those expectations with the partner. And I think Adobe does a very good job of that with both Ann and Tony to say like, hey, we're going to set the expectations around what a partnership looks like, especially for partners that are developing and getting larger and creating a bigger use case library of opportunities. So.
Quick follow-up on that. You were talking about this developing a product, Justin, which the best agencies know how to kind of productize a service and make things kind of predictable and put their own spin on it that isn't just X product implementation, right? There's something more nuanced or special about that. Oftentimes, this is why from years of yore, these were called, value-added resellers, right? Before when they actually did, buy the software on behalf of, obviously with SaaS, a little bit rare in our world. So they're adding some value on top of your base practices. And Alex, you said we need to make sure there's competency in the core things like the Adobe way for an AEM implementation, maybe some customer health benchmarks, some key milestones in an onboarding journey or an implementation, or some curve of maturity. How do you evaluate that in partner marketing? I'm assuming that's another function. Is that delivery? I'm assuming the partner manager is not the one that really is responsible for that. How do you kind of have that quality control on partner delivery to ensure that you're marketing with the right people?
Yeah, loaded question, right? Like, I think, I think I know I keep going back to this, right? But we're in lockstep with the partner manager, right? And understanding as far as once we get to that marketing aspect and then the deployment, right? And creating new opportunities in the deployment and seeing that go through, right? And then you see those partners continue to do more and more. And that actually gives you that vote of confidence that like, hey, like this is a really great go-to-market partner. and seeing those opportunities being created. I think if you fast forward a little bit, hopefully this is where you're going. If you fast forward to that deployment that creates, an opportunity is created and the deployment happens, and we win that opportunity, and then we market more, we're going to continue to get more of those. And so I think that's the vote of confidence. We have to see those come to fruition. We see those close won opportunities and go from there. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, what I was looking for is the partner manager is the one sort of making the call. And I was curious if you interfaced with, let's say, the delivery team, services, et cetera, around kind of partner competency, because there is the ability to lose what Adobe thinks is success and the partner's unique spin. For example, you might have a partner that is focused specifically on, let's say, retargeting, right? Like they've been a traditionally ad agency, spend-oriented kind of agency. And they've just started to break into more like kind of nurture and customer journey management with Marketo. So they might have an offering they come into the client with where the client's like, look, okay, we're going to do this Marketo thing, but like for the first 6 months, it's all about ads, right? Like we got to drive the traffic, whatever the heck it is. So maybe they drove the deal. Maybe everyone seems kind of happy, but the reality is the Marketo benchmarks are junk. They're not actually healthy. Is delivery keeping an eye on that and like funneling that back up into the partner management dashboard to kind of keep the marketing team, like they don't have to deal with it, and the partner manager is responsible for only bringing quality to go to market?
Yeah, I mean, quite honestly, we don't have from a partner marketing perspective, from a delivery side, we don't have a lot of insight to that. And so that really isn't something we focus on the marketing side, really, because especially specific for us, like we're focused on driving net new opportunities and getting that into motion and getting that, into motion with both the PM and the NAM. And so from a partner marketing perspective, the delivery aspect, although is extremely important and don't want to discredit that at all, isn't a focus from a partner marketing side.
But it is on the enablement side. So kind of like building some of those best practices, that's obviously a partner marketing function. Certifications, trainings, on-demand content, makes perfect sense. I'm curious. So I bet there's a lot of folks that are not at the phase of maturity as Adobe, that partner marketing is also thinking, strategically from an acquisition standpoint. Are you in your organization more specifically focused on kind of curating the best of the best, given that it's a go-to-market focus, or does the organization also have a latent eye on partner acquisition?
No, just the prior, just focused on that first part around net new and driving new business versus the acquisition side.
Okay, so everyone out there right now today, what you just heard Alex say is the snippet that you can forward to your CEO, to whoever wins the ecosystem, right, has the spoils. You're all out there trying to figure out how we go and get everyone aligned to go get more partners on board. And like whenever you have the ecosystem, you're like, no, we don't do anything for partner recruitment. They come to us and we have to curate.
Yeah, you get to play inbound qualification at that point.
No, I mean, I think it's super important, right? Like there are so many different aspects. And I think what we're fortunate enough around Adobe is we have a fairly large partner team. And it actually allows us, though we are trying to be in lockstep with one another, is there are different teams that are focused on different parts of the partnership in the ecosystem that allows us to say, hey, we're focused on, go-to-market demand gen activities with these partners, while other teams are focused in other parts of the ecosystem. Which is it's a good thing, right? But it's also a great way to learn in other areas when you're smaller. But from our side, the team that I work with, the team that Mike works with, as well as Tyler, really focused on, hey, here are the partners we are working with day in and day out. How do we develop this strategy to drive new business? And I think is also important. I say this to every partner: drive business to Adobe, but equally drive business to the partner, because we want to make sure that it's like we're not just taking from you every day. Like we're working together. This is a partnership. We want to make sure that you're creating those services for your organization as well.
I'm curious, Alex, do you interface with just kind of like LinkedIn on the side in terms of community or other partnerships professionals outside of the walls of Adobe, occasionally? Or is this like, hey, I've been kind of focused on mastering this craft here at Adobe, like not really sure of much outside of the walls here and how partner programs might be structured, et cetera. I'm curious if that's a frequent or infrequent conversation you might have with a fellow partner marketer.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm being very honest, I've been really kind of this kind of tunnel vision as of right now, just with so many different initiatives happening. I think it's a great call out that even personally and professionally, as well as just for the betterment of partner marketing, is reaching out to other partner marketers within different organizations, understanding best practices and understanding how they do things. But if I'm being pretty transparent, which I always try to be, is that really just focusing within the tunnels of Adobe right now. And it partially it's because of the different initiatives we have going on and the different directives we have right now. But yeah, it's pretty, I guess we tunnel vision a little bit.
No. What's that, Justin?
He said it's probably why he's doing pretty good.
Yeah, that's also why he was highly recommended by all of his peers and colleagues.
Coffee, happy hours, you know.
Yeah, and that wasn't a trap question or a trick question. Right. The reason why I asked is I feel like there is a need. So if someone has it out there, tweet it at us, LinkedIn message us, hit us up on the Cloud Software Association Slack. I feel like there's a need for some sort of ecosystem, maturity model that you could break down per department. So for example, in your phase of maturity, the marketing organization's primary responsibility is demand generation, right, with partners. And in the beginning phases, like if you're 100% focused on demand generation, that's going to be tough. That's going to be tough to go and tell that story with any sort of like maybe you could do it at the beginning a little bit, but there was a great phase. We're going through, Alex, where are you based? Are you West Coast?
I'm in Denver.
You're in Denver? Okay. So Mountain Time, probably not too familiar to the folks in,
why did you say
West
that
Coast
so weird?
Mountain Time. What's up?
Why did you say that so weird?
Mountain Time? Because that was
like
what
a
you used to say
cowboy, like Mountain Time. Yeah, I don't know. Anyways,
I grew up on the border. I grew up on the border of Colorado and New Mexico. Yeah, I mean, all
right.
That's old stomping grounds.
Okay.
We're going through right now force management training, which is like this command of the message stuff, which is it's like the people that built PTC. This guy right here. So if you're on YouTube, the qualified sales leader, John McMahon, legend. This guy's he claimed over 100 people that have worked for him that are now CROs. And in this kind of command of the message training and program that we're going through inside of Drift right now, we're realizing there's more and more that we have to do to get everyone, I would say, focused on the core kind of value drivers of their product, of their solution. So everyone's going through this messaging training. How do you think about kind of controlling the messaging of your partners? And they're going to market with all of these different kind of stories, these different verticals. And you're in this phase of maturity where I don't think the rest of the market, it's the reason why I asked this question, the rest of the market isn't thinking at that level. They're thinking, I need my first, my first case study, right? My first joint customer win, my first partner highlight. And you're thinking, okay, how do I nail, retail, hospitality, medical manufacturing, use cases for this geography in this company size?
Right.
I feel like those motions are very particular and very different than kind of the more broad-based partner marketing you might see in a startup. So it wasn't a trick question like, hey, how are you going and asking everyone else? It's more that I feel like these are the things that need to get shared, because some of those basic things that we can do really well as a smaller organization might be applicable or helpful to, maybe create more interesting ideas or thoughts. And the same thing down to us too. Like, Justin, if you had an Adobe partner that wanted to partner up with you on demand generation for, medical manufacturing, it's like, hey, we're going to go do co-marketing, medical manufacturing, Adobe, you, me. Where would you start?
Yeah, I think Well, I think did you ask the question to Alex and then pivot to me?
No, yeah, I'm going to turn it back over to Alex. I
Okay,
told you this is going to be one of those episodes.
I got lost.
I told Alex at the beginning.
Rephrase the question if I was going to start.
Yeah. To summarize, I was making a point that I believe that's part of the reason that we're all together is we have to. This is probably more of a clarion call to Sunir and the Cloud Software Association. We don't know where we're at as an industry, partner marketing.
Yeah.
What partner marketing book have you read? Like none. You're learning by doing and executing, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
It's very difficult for other people to understand that maturity curve, right? Like that maturity model.
Yeah.
And what competencies, for example, you might have skipped ahead of like 8. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know who wrote the competency model for partner marketing. So Justin, like if we were to put ourselves in Alex's shoes today, if Alex had a partner that was like, hey, medical manufacturing, we want to go do, AEM stuff with you, Alex, you'd probably have a playbook on, if your partner account manager said they were good, you would know what to do. Justin, we would be like deer in headlights, right?
Yeah.
If you had kind of, I mean, for demand gen specifically,
what's the question?
The question is, it's not something that it's a competency that people don't know they need to develop, right? So for example, industry specific partner marketing, geo specific, size specific, like the way that Adobe segments its business is often even a shock to people. Like you're so used to it, Justin, or like Alex, most people don't realize that Adobe segments its business on customer spend, on geo, on vertical. There's all of these on product line.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa. There's a lot of complexity there that I feel like we need to do a better job as a community of connecting and sharing. So I guess this is sort of my clarion call, Justin, more so than it is a direct question to Alex. I was just seeing if you, if we could see the difference between where we're at and where someone else is at, and being able to recognize that, for example, if you don't have partners trying to do vertical specific messaging with you, maybe that's not what you should be focused on.
Yeah. Well, I think like our stage of partner marketing and like Alex's stage are two examples of different parts of the spectrum where like we're very much so in the how do we use partners to amplify and solidify this new category and this new way of doing, businesses buy from businesses, right? And we've been focused on amplification for so long and really, building the brand and around our ecosystem. But now we're developing a need to partner with people who own different parts of the market that we want to grow into that can take that platform message and tweak it and twist it so it resonates with a very specific account and buyer and set of technologies that we might need to integrate with. And Alex lives in that world daily. That's kind of what I'm hearing. It's like,
right. Yeah. Maybe it's not the top of the maturity curve. Maybe there's like another level past like Alex that he's going to develop with Adobe, where it's like, hey, here's the next level of partner demand generation. I think it's just one of those frameworks. So it's if someone has a partner marketing maturity model that they've dreamt up,
I'd love to see it.
I would love to see it. I'd love to get it out there in front of people, because I think that's the biggest hiccup that people make is that they look to role models without understanding where they're at and the steps in between. To tie that back to what you said, Alex, there's steps in between. Right. Like if you just, if you were just listening to what I said and it's like, hey, here's how you need to do this, you kind of have to work backwards.
I think it's also important to know, when we mentioned this, like the market to aspect, right? Like partner marketing is not just demand gen. Yes, that's a huge component of where my focus and my time is, but there is a big proponent around market too, right? Like we are continually trying to educate our partners on the Adobe solution stack, right? And how we're going to market. Market two also includes how do you build messaging that comes from you to the market. And I think that's super important. I think as I kind of further understood partner marketing for a while, it was like demand gen, activities, field marketing, blah, blah, blah. And it quickly learned, and Adobe actually taught me moving from Marketo to Adobe after the acquisition, was that like this market two aspect is very large, right? Because partners can't deploy if they don't know how, right? And so, we have team members that, have a ton of focus just on the market two aspect, because we need to make sure partners are updated on what we're saying, right? And so I mentioned this on our kind of pre-call, but we're doing things like BDR lunch and learns, where partners are coming to the table, we're doing lunch with them, and they're teaching them about how to go to market with our messaging, because BDR or Adobe has marketed to us. We have developed new content, and now we're marketing back to you so we can work together. So there's just a ton of market to aspects, whether it's to the partner or it's actually to internally to our sales team and BDRs to say, hey, this is the first step, right? Around understanding and being comfortable with one another. We talked about the competency around that. And so I definitely want to discredit whether you're a large company like Adobe or a Salesforce, or you're a smaller company in building that ecosystem and a partner wanting to get in. It's like, hey, there is an aspect of enablement and market too that this starts this whole motion. And until we get there, the demand gen aspect, it'll never come, because we have, but the partner needs to feel confident just as much as, in our case, Adobe feels confident to create a go-to-market messaging or strategy to put this in front of people in the public. So
what I've noticed about Adobe, like the one thing I've learned and taken away from HubSpot partner marketing was like, make your partners famous. In other words, FOMO, right? So HubSpot did a very good job of heralding their best partners. You can go check it out. I think it's episode 4 with Pete Caputa. So PartnerUp episode 4, Pete Caputa, shout out Pete. Very different ends of the spectrum. Very small agency, small business, like mom and pop shop almost. I mean, I DQ'd myself out of being a HubSpot agency. Like that's how, like, it's like, oh, I had a 30-person agency. It was like, oh, that's even smaller than that. But they, over time, this was 2012. They got better and better. And one of the ways they did it was by really selling the value of the partnership and how your agency could be a better agency. What I've noticed with Adobe is they're very, very customer centric in terms of every new story. So the way you even started this conversation, Alex, was about what customers have they helped, right? Like, what story can we tell for what industry, what vertical? There's some specialization there. What's the biggest kind of like arrow in your quiver? Is it utilizing partner stories in market to get them to, actually stand up and go do stuff? Or is it using customer stories that look most like their customers? Is it like other partner examples? It's like, hey, here's how a partner like you built a better agency or better SI or a better practice. Or is it, here's how customers in your vertical, in your area of expertise, how they, accomplish their goals, and then how you might as well, or you might help your customers do the same.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is. We from time to time can bring up partners that have done things successfully and say, hey, here's kind of the steps that this partner has done, and here's where they've gotten, and here's a great example of utilizing that customer story to get to that next level. And so we have such great relationships with our partners, or at least I like to think we do. And so when we have those conversations, those one-to-one type meetings, we like bring up other partners and say, hey, here's a great example of how a partner is doing it right? And it gives them, to your kind of note, a little bit of FOMO, but it also says, hey, this is something I have to strive for, right? And I love giving examples to partners, whether they're newer or even if they're veteran partners. Man, we give them examples all the time of like, hey, here's how it went well, and here's how we can kind of use that as an example. But then we also, I mean, man, if I'm honest, I also give examples where like, hey, this probably wasn't the best kind of situation, right? So let's stay clear of that, right? Whether it's new deployments or it's partner marketing activity, man, we always like to learn, whether it's good or bad, how this situation went, how this program went, and how do we get better each day? Which sounds super cliche to say that, but it's kind of true.
Yeah,
it's repetition. What was the enforced management, Justin? The competence leads to confidence, which leads to conviction.
I didn't get
right?
to take
So
that.
What's that?
I didn't get to take it yet. I'm on the B team. I got it this week.
Same here. No, it's just different. Yeah, I think that has a lot to do with it. It's inspiring the basic level of competence, and understanding that their customers can do, they can monetize the opportunity for their customers and solve their customers' pain points. That other partners have done the same, that they're not the first to do that. I mean, the first mover advantage, it's interesting. You have a lot of mature industries. Are there, actually, that's a quick tangent. Are there any industries right now or verticals or geos that is like brand new partner development for you, Alex? Like you picked up Magento, so maybe it's not right now, but it was like, oh shoot, we've never done e-commerce. We have to figure this out. Has there been anything that's come like net new into your picture since you've been at Adobe?
Not as much net new as what we've seen a focus on recently, right? Seeing a lot of focus on what is now Adobe Commerce with the new branding across like manufacturing, which has been a huge one as of recently. We have a lot of partners really trying to hit that.
That's COVID related, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I mean, you can't deny the fact that obviously COVID has changed everything in the way individuals are consuming, right? And so I've seen that a lot of recent direct to consumer, right, is one again that has been heavily affected by everything going on. And so we've seen some partners really kind of double click into that as a way for manufacturers to beat out the middleman and get straight to the consumer. I also think that one that's not a new one, but also something that's extremely relevant is healthcare, right? How we create patient experiences within healthcare is extremely important. You know, I use this as an example all the time, but when someone is in a hospital, right, and then they get, you know, whether it's themselves or a spouse or a family member and something tragic happens, right, like they don't want to get a message 24 hours later that says, hey, can you tell us about your experience at, you know, this this hospital, right? And so a lot of partners have started to really focus in on patient experience within the healthcare system. So we've seen a lot of partners either pivot to healthcare or they're really double clicking into it. And even though they focus on FSI and high tech, healthcare, manufacturing, they're going to say, hey, with our efforts amongst your team and our team, we're going to focus on partner marketing and healthcare because we know it's super relevant right now. And hopefully we're not over pivoting because other people are. But we've seen a lot of healthcare conversations come as of recent and a lot of solutions that our partners are building around, you know, Amplify solutions that work with our solutions. They're developing to help support that kind of healthcare motion. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love how like that starting with that conversation of the Better Together story and like what's our unique thing here that we're working on with the partnership is ultimately a positioning exercise for the agency and for the partnership itself. Right. And from an alliance's perspective, like I always kind of tell our cams this is like the best thing you can do for your partner is position them really well. Like get them to really hone in on an expertise because if you think about their success at the end of the day and what they want, which is probably referrals, reciprocal referrals, like they have to be memorable in the minds of your account managers and your sellers and your CSMs. And if they're all coming to say, yeah, we're a good Adobe partner, we're a good Drift partner, and you know that's what we do and we'll do it for anybody, that's not as sticky as like, yeah, I'm really good at healthcare providers and doing, you know, AEM implementations for them if they're in Topeka, Kansas. Like, oh, okay. Like I know where to put you and I know who to pair you with. And I know you're going to be the best person in Topeka, Kansas for AEM, you know, provider implementations. Right. You want to get that specific. But I love how that Better Together story kind of is really just a positioning exercise in the day of like, how are we going to maintain your mental memory in the mind of an account manager, of the market, of a potential customer, and then, you know, how do you uniquely speak to that customer at the end of the day and hopefully win the business?
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that, and some partners don't like this, but I stick by it, is when we create these stories and programs with partners for the demand gen aspect and the go-to-market, is that I always ask, all right, where are we focused? Well, we're focused on AEM across all. Bye. Goodbye. This is over. Because what we want to say is, hey, I'm focused on AEM and we're focusing on these two industries. And actually it's one with a subset industry. Great. That's a perfect story that I can go to the NAMs and the AEs and the BDRs and say, hey, I got partner X that's going to talk to you about a program that they built around a demand gen program that has events, it has content, it has all these different things. And look, we're focused on these types of accounts. And if it doesn't pertain to you, bye. Then that's okay, right? Because now we're focused just on this group. And then we go to the next partner and that program takes off, right? And we're working that program. And then we go to the next partner, and this partner's like, great, I am focused on direct to consumer across AEM and Adobe Commerce. Great, well, let's figure that story out. Then we reach out to those teams and say, hey, we have a story around direct to consumer that focuses on AEM and commerce. And they say, who raises their hand? So those people raise their hand. Great. Anyone else, quote unquote, you can leave the room. And it just creates these perfect swim lanes of like, how do we go to market? And yeah, I understand that partners, we have a ton of partners out there that have Commerce, Marketo, AEM, Analytics, and they have the whole bag. But I can't do that. And our NAMs and AEs and BDRs they're focused on very specific areas. So if we go to them and say that, they're like, man, I don't have time for this. But if we go to them and say, hey, we have a marketing plan that is going to get you those up and open those doors for you, these specific opportunities, man, we can take those and set those aside and work on those. And then we go back to that NAM and say, hey, what do you have left? And then they say, here's, okay, great. We have this partner that can help you do that. And I think the other thing, and I know we're low on time, but one thing I always encourage people is that like we have to be in sync with the different teams, right? So on our side on Adobe, we have segment leads, right, that sit within marketing, but they are tied to their sales leaders, right? So when I sit down with Caroline Hull or I sit down with Marissa Lyman, I say, hey, where are the gaps in the business, right? Well, we have this, and this, and we need help here. Tyler and Mike and I get together and say, okay, who can help this gap? Well, hey, I've got, Mike says, I've got Microsoft has this and they can help with that gap based off, this criteria. Perfect, gap filled. Hey, who can help with, I'm just going to make this up, who can help with healthcare in the growth segment focused on Marketo? Well, we have these partners that are probably our legacy Marketo partners that are quick, avid, and can get to work. And so what I always really emphasize to our teams is like, hey, you have to be in line with your segment leads, the sales leaders, the BDR leaders to say, hey, where are the gaps? Where do you need help? Because quite frankly, our partners are producing more than you need, right? And so what can we pick from? And so I always joke about this. One day it's probably going to be either on a meme or come back and bite me. But I always say that like our partners are producing so much stuff. It's almost like a buffet in the sense of like, hey, here's all the content that our partners are producing and programs that they're producing based off the needs of the business. And we need to market to you, the insights sellers and marketing team, say, hey, like what can we use to fulfill those gaps? And so that comes that market to piece internally to say, hey, this is all the great stuff that our partners are doing. Where can we get it? Can it be part of an internal demand gen program? Can it be part of a social campaign that Megan Barr and her team is running? And so I think that's one thing this year that our team has done very well is being lockstep with the different teams, whether it's marketing or sales, to say, hey, like, where are the gaps? Like, we have a ton of amazing stuff. What can we help support you with? Because we have partners across the spectrum that can help you.
Yeah, I feel like we have to add that to the partner marketing maturity framework where it's like early stage, you go from building the ecosystem, building the partnerships, enabling them to, at the phase of Adobe, like you're still building the ecosystem, but you're much more ecosystem pruning and smoothing, right? To make sure the resources are applied in the best way possible across that partnership, and really making the most of your internal team's time, your partner's time, so that everybody's going to be successful. And there's not a gap in delivery and what you're delivering to the market with your partners, but also it's productive for everybody and no one's stepping on toes.
Yeah. I mean, if I'm honest, like over my time at Marketo and Adobe, it has been a huge learning curve for me to understand what partner marketing is, what I thought partner marketing was, and what it truly is. It's a testament to leadership, whether it's Ann Fiorito or Tony Sanders on the sales side, is developing what partner marketing looks like and how it's not just demand gen, but it's so many different pieces, and it's being sure that you're part of this whole kind of go-to-market cycle to understand that, hey, partner marketing isn't just demand gen, but it's also not just marketing to partners to pick up Adobe practices and have teams that focus on certain solutions, but it's really a kind of a full circle of how we work together. And it's been really neat to see how we have partner marketing leads, part of conversations that they probably were never part of, whether it's QBRs with the partner or RTBs, or it's just the partner opportunity plan or partner plan where marketing was maybe an after fact thought. Now they're actually on those calls of saying, hey, where does partner marketing fit into the early stages of this conversation, and how do we help round about that conversation with demand gen activity, so this partnership continues to be fruitful for both the partner and Adobe.
That's it's so incredible to see it and then like be away from it. That fully integrated kind of mindset where everything from sales segment leads, right, having specific marketing counterparts that are specifically eliciting content back from, you know, the partners that best fit the solution, all the way to kind of the program design that is specifically designed to capture everything from partner marketing. It's one of the things that I think all of us have to recognize that are in the partner seat that aren't the CMO, that aren't the CRO, the CFO, the CEO, is, okay, if we're not there where my demand gen team and my, you know, content team and like all of these teams have a partner hat that they wear at least once a week, and this is how they interface with the partner team, you're not there yet. Like, it takes the rest of the team to really maximize what Alex has been able to do, because I'm sure the Marketo to Adobe transition showed you that very big difference, right? That delta between, oh, here's what fully integrated partner marketing looks like versus we do cool marketing with our partners, right? It's like, it's a completely different thing. Alex, that was awesome, my man. Before we go, I do want to give a quick shout out. So I made a couple shout outs on the call today, but we got to do the formal one to the Cloud Software Association. So Alex, come join. Everyone else who's listening, come join. It's just Slack group. It's awesome. There's about 4,000. It's got to be 4,500 now. Partnerships professionals. And I'm sure Sunir and the team would love to have you on for like a master class to kind of talk through, you know, from a demand gen partner marketing perspective, what that fully integrated kind of, some of the learnings that you've had kind of going from one to the other, Marketo to Adobe. And I'm sure people would love to share with you and share with them. So come join up, Cloud Software Association. Justin, Alex, it's been a pleasure. We're gonna have you on again, and look forward to doing some partner marketing in the future.
Absolutely.
All right, we'll see y'all next time.
Thanks, Alex.
Thanks.